Doctor Who returns this weekend, and for the first time in the show's history, we're kicking off with a double bill. As such, we're in the unusual position of speculating about episode 2 before having even seen episode 1. I've already previewed Space Babies, so go and watch that video if you haven't already. But today I'll be running through everything to look forward to in The Devil's Chord. The synopsis tells us that the Doctor and Ruby meet the Beatles, but discover that the all-powerful Maestro is changing history. London becomes a battleground, with the future of humanity at stake. So what can we expect from this second episode? First of all, this is our first historical episode since Legend of the Sea Devils in 2022, over 2 years ago. We've had episodes with scenes set in the past since then, like Power of the Doctor, or Wild Blue Yonder briefly, or indeed The Giggle, but this is our first full-on historical episode in a good while, indeed the first one of this new era. And the production team has really gone to town with it in terms of the sets and the costumes, which I'll talk about more as we go on, in terms of recreating 1960s London. Of course, a very sort of fitting choice for this first historical episode for the 15th Doctor, 1963, the year that Doctor Who came into being. This looks to be a very different type of historical episode to the Whittaker historicals, for example, which very much focused on the whole educate as well as entertain type thing. And it'll kind of set the template for all the other historicals in this era, so I'm really looking forward to seeing what that entails. Next up, we have our new Doctor, Ncuti Gatwa, the 15th Doctor, looking ever so smart in his outfit for this episode, that blue pinstripe suit, as well with his afro hairstyle, very, very smart and suave. This is a Doctor with, multiple outfits, as we've seen already, but also a Doctor who loves to dress up, for the time period that he's visiting. So for instance here, you go to the 60s, you wear your pinstripe suit, you dress for the occasion, to quote the Master. So there's definitely that to look forward to, but also in terms of this new Doctor's characterisation, I'm pretty sure Ncuti has spoken in interviews about how this episode in particular really kind of explores the whole gamut of the Doctor's emotions and the whole kind of range of that performance in terms of having moments of joy and much more emotional moments where he's like, oh my god, how am I going to save the day? And of course, we are going to see him sing as well, which I'll get onto later on. But yes, it's still very much early days for this Doctor. It's his fourth story, his first historical, so lots of first moments to come. This is also the first historical for new companion Ruby Sunday. Of course, she has already briefly been back in time for the whole prehistoric thing in Space Babies, but this is the first time she's properly able to go back in time and immerse herself in an era and once again dress for the occasion, looking very, very smart and stylish indeed. Indeed, it's Ruby who suggests going back in time to the 60s. I'm pretty sure the Doctor kind of asks her, where do you want to go? Where would you pick in all of time and space? So she's going to be right at home in this era, and she's a musician herself. She plays the keyboard. I believe she'll actually be playing the keyboard or a piano in this story. And like with Ncuti, with this new Doctor, there'll be so much to kind of explore in terms of her reactions to going back in time for the first time properly and all that kind of stuff, seeing how she finds things, seeing how she deals with time travel as well and its ramifications. And of course, seeing her developing relationship with the Doctor as well. So much to look forward to there. Now, the reason Ruby chooses this particular time period to go back in time to is because she wants to meet the Beatles. They will, of course, be appearing in this story, all four of them, making it a celebrity historical of sorts, although we've been led to believe they're not going to have a major role. They're going to be more kind of in the background, I think. We've already seen the actors cast as, is it John, Paul, George, and Ringo? Yeah, I think that's right. They don't exactly look that much like the real-life Beatles did in the 60s, but hey, I suppose we'll just roll with it. We've also been told that there won't actually be any Beatles music in this story, so while we will see the Beatles there, playing their instruments and stuff and singing, they won't be singing any of the actual songs that the Beatles released because of the licensing issues and the astronomical costs of doing that on TV. So it'll be interesting to see how big a role they play in the story, but regardless, it'll be great to see the Beatles in Doctor Who at long last. It's taken a crazy amount of time for this to happen, like 60 years. Given how big Doctor Who and the Beatles both were in the 60s, it's kind of a match made in heaven, really. Also appearing in this story as the villain will be Drag Race star Jinkx Monsoon as Maestro, this god of music, this all-powerful being who has all these powers, a bit like the Toymaker did in The Giggle. This is the kind of equivalent thing for music. It's going to be a first for Doctor Who having a drag performer in the show. It's going to be a very different type of performance. You know, the show has had kind of camp villains and just camp stuff in general in the past, but this is going to be a whole other level of camp. There's already been a preview clip, released for the story, giving us a brief glimpse of Maestro in action, and yes, I think we are not ready for what we're about to witness here. With Jinkx, it's going to be one hell of a performance, one hell of a villain. We already know that Maestro is going to have lots of different outfits, again, much like the toy maker before them. There's going to be singing and dancing and music and all sorts of stuff going down. It's going to be crazy. But Jinkx isn't the only prominent guest star whose name begins with a J, because we also have June Hudson returning to the Whoniverse, a costume designer for the 4th Doctor towards the end of Tom Baker's tenure, who, amongst other things, created his iconic Season 18 look, the whole burgundy costume with a burgundy jacket and scarf. Now she'll be contributing to the show in a very different capacity, having previously appeared in the pilot episode of Class. She's credited simply as Elderly Woman, and we've already had a glimpse of her in the trailer being menaced by Maestro. I think this will just be a small part, a cameo part, possibly like a kind of pre-titles thing, just to kind of prove how powerful Maestro is. But in any case, it'll be great to see her, and what a lovely little nod to classic series fans to have her appear in this new era. June isn't the only familiar name in the cast list. We're also going to have Josie Sedgwick-Davis playing Cilla Black, again for what I presume is just a little cameo, with Cilla also recording something in Abbey Road Studios at the same time as the Beatles. And the show's composer, Murray Gold, will be appearing as himself, as he did previously in Voyage of the Damned. I believe in that case he was like a double bass player or something, and I'm guessing here he's either conducting something he's written or playing the keyboard or something like that. There's one other more spoilery name who I'll discuss later on, but in terms of other cast members, we have Jeremy Lim as Timothy Drake, who seems to be a kind of composer of music. We have characters called Henry and Vinny. We have a tea trolley lady in addition to just a tea lady, who I'll discuss later on. We also have Shirley Ballas and Johannes Rodaby, the pair of dancers from Strictly, who were previously confirmed to be appearing in the show. Now on that note, The Devil's Chord is set to be the most musical episode in Doctor Who's history. Obviously we've got the Beatles in there, we've got those dancers from Strictly, but more generally we can definitely expect to have at least one musical number involving the Doctor and Ruby. We've seen them both there singing and dancing, we've seen like a whole orchestra, we've seen dancers with umbrellas and colourful dresses, God knows what. And I'd be very, very surprised if Jinkx as Maestro doesn't also break out into song at a number of points. So lots of singing and dancing and music to come in this story. It won't be to everybody's tastes, but I'm intrigued to see how it's done. Something that classic series fans will be able to get more on board with is the sequence of the Doctor and Ruby visiting what we can only assume is a future version of Earth, ravaged by apocalypse and all this stuff that's gone wrong in the past. We've seen it already in the trailers, and from what we have seen, it looks to be a very similar scenario to what we saw in Pyramids of Mars, where the 4th Doctor took Sarah Jane back to her own present, and it was like a wasteland, like a different planet entirely, almost. And it was all to illustrate this point that, if you don't solve a problem in the past, the present will suffer. There are ramifications to time travel. It does all have an impact. As the Doctor says in the trailer, this is what we're trying to stop. So it'll be nice to see a kind of bigger budget version of that scene from Pyramids of Mars, hopefully, but also as well, will this tie into the broader stuff that's going on with time travel, with Mavity and with the butterfly effect scene in Space Babies, this whole idea of small changes in the past having lasting impacts. Last but not least, we have that other name from the cast list, and if you do want to remain kind of completely unspoiled, do skip over this section. But the tea lady I previously mentioned is going to be played by an actor already familiar to Doctor Who fans, namely Susan Twist, making her return to the show, having previously appeared as Mrs. Merridew in Wild Blue Yonder, and then that kind of hippie heckler character in the church on Ruby Road. I don't expect to learn too much more about what she's up to or who she is, but it's going to be very nice to see her again, very interesting to see her again, as a different character, a different persona, presumably someone delivering tea to the Doctor or to the Beatles. It's such an intriguing mystery for the series, such an intriguing arc, and I can't wait to see how it develops. What are you looking forward to in The Devil's Chord? Be sure to let me know down in the comments below. If you have enjoyed this video, please do leave a like, and make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're new for more Season 1 content over the coming weeks. But otherwise, until the next one, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye for now.